So, I guess I finally have an opportunity to talk about something that is up to date because everything has to be modern, everything has to be clean cut and perfectly edited, everything has to be the most intelligible thing, and everything has to be what's trending. I don't normally talk about things that trend a lot of the time. I kind of just talk about whatever I'm thinking about. But I happened to see the Supergirl movie yesterday, and I figured I might as well try a movie review because I do have a lot of thoughts. And what better thing to do than make a YouTube video about it? So, this movie kind of sucked. And before you get mad at me, it's not because Supergirl is a female character. It's not because you can't have good female super characters. I don't really know what people are talking about it, if anybody's interested in that kind of crap, or how many people are. But it's not that good of a movie. Coming off the heels of the Superman movie from last year, or was it like a year, or was it the year before that? I had very high hopes for this movie. I thought that it was going to be a lot more interesting. Um, and it just wasn't. A couple of things to talk about here. So, Supergirl, her character and the actress that plays her, she does a pretty good job with what she's essentially given for the script. She's an alcoholic. She's basically a college party frat girl that's partying for her birthday and who's still dealing with the trauma of losing her home and not really having a home for herself. The entire plot starts because some random family on a random planet gets murdered in front of a girl's face, and she takes her father's sword, and it basically meets with Supergirl, asks her help, and Supergirl kind of is forced to help her because the guys that killed her family also poisoned her dog. Which again, like, okay, I didn't expect them to do that, but also like, it still wasn't that interesting. I don't. I think when I say that I didn't like this movie, it's because I've seen like a lot of movies, and I think like a lot of modern day movies, they all feel very cookie cutter to me. I feel like the moment somebody said something, I already knew where that plot thread was going to go. Like, I don't even remember the characters' names. I've literally I remember Supergirl and I remember Lebo. There are these bad guys who are basically just uh, taking advantage of everybody they can. Every single point in the story, there are either thieves or people who or the main bad guys that are also associated with those thieves, and they're just like the most despicable people for no fucking reason. Me and the guy that I was watching this movie with, we both have dealt with like white gang members, and I kept saying that the main bad guy reminded me of every white Ghostface member that I've ever met, and I couldn't take it seriously after that point in time. He was an asshole, but like he was like strong, but not strong enough to fight Supergirl. And then they kept doing this thing where what our planet was on was whether or not she had powers, and like I already knew like when they kept establishing like what color sun the planet was on, like there was going to be at some point in the climax where there's going to be a dual star system and one of the stars was going to depower her. I knew that was going to happen before we got to the fucking end, or it was going to be something like she has to go to the bad guy's planet, and then there was going to be a weaker star, like a red star. The only thing I didn't know was what they actually did, which is far dumber. Everything that is unpredictable about this movie doesn't make it better. Um, it's almost like a feminist movie, and I don't mind that, especially with Supergirl. I really didn't care if they were going to take a feminist message for it or not. But it was just weird to me how it was just minor throwaway lines and just plot points that just seemed to be sudden in the movie, but like also nothing was really done with it. So like they had one throwaway line where the girl that wants revenge for the bad guys, who like asked Supergirl to help her, was like, "Well, you're an adult, so why aren't you Superwoman?" That goes nowhere. They just mentioned that. I don't know why. I think they just wanted to establish that they know that the name can be problematic, and that was it. That line fit nowhere else in the rest of the movie. The cool feminist thing that they did was when they had Supergirl like being unassuming in a bar, trying to arm wrestle people for information and like people genuinely thinking that she can't fight. And it was really cool to like see people like underestimate her and her beat the shit out of people. Those were the fun parts of the movie. And then Lobo's in the movie, and you know Jason Momoa has wanted to be Lobo for years, so he's just fucking eating up every goddamn scene he's in. He is having the time of his life. He doesn't care what's happening in the movie. He's like, I get to be Lobo. I've always wanted to be Lobo, and you can tell he was like, make me as comic book accurate as possible. I'm gonna personify it as best as I can. And goddamn it, I really hate that he wasted his. He wasted those years being Aquaman when he could have been Lobo this whole time. He was a really fucking good Lobo. So her dog gets poisoned, and like the bad guys, I don't remember what the fuck their names are. Because it's just random alien planets. By the way, all of the aliens speak English except for sometimes when they don't. And then they call it the common tongue, which bothers me, but it's just movie bullshit. Um, and her dog is poisoned, which sucks because you don't want Crypto to be poisoned. Crypto is like one of the best things about the movie, and for almost all of the movie, you're just waiting to see if he's going to die, but you know he's not, and he has 72 hours to live because 3 days on an alien planet is also somehow 72 hours. Don't think about it too hard. Um, and so like you again, I already knew like whenever they had the countdown, I was like, all right, like the last few hours, she's gonna get the antidote for the poison, and Crypto's gonna be fine because like they're not gonna kill Crypto because people wouldn't like it, the fans wouldn't like it, so they're not gonna do it. And the entire time, like I was not really worried about anybody dying. I was not really in suspense for a lot of things happening, and there was just a lot of things that there was a lot of things that were happening that while Supergirl was likable, a lot of things happening around her like was not likable. Every character was very easily telegraphed. The girl that she's helping is a very one-dimensional, very posh, over the top talking like she says the word honor like 500 fucking times in this movie, and a very one-dimensional like I'm going to get vengeance thing. They tie in Supergirl's origin, which they made it to where the planet's core and Krypton blew up, and like they managed to make a force field to save like a part of the planet, and she lived on that. She was born after that happened, so she only knew Krypton after it blew up. But then something kryptonite, and people are dying, but they're not all dying at the same speed. So she watches her mother die, and then she sees her dad being affected by kryptonite, but she's not affected by the kryptonite, and then she gets to leave, and then presumably everybody that's left on Krypton dies, which blows my fucking mind because like they kept talking about nobody listening, but like nobody thinks to build a ship, and then people get sick, and then nobody thinks to build a ship, and they keep doing this shit with the Superman story where Krypton like should be evacuated, but they don't, and they don't even have a good reason to evacuate half the goddamn time because they don't have the sudden explosion, and even if they did, like didn't make it to where they found shit out last minute, or they didn't even establish that the rockets that they were building would take like a long time, and they made me need the stasis chamber because for the rest of this movie, she has a ship that can travel from planet to planet, and traveling between planet to planet is like a very common thing here. So I don't understand that. Also, the Kryptonians knew that going to a yellow sun would give them like unbelievable superpowers and make them a god. So again, like, why the fuck would you stay on Krypton? Like, that's the only thing that bothers me about the Krypton backstory. And then they kept like her family was a very two-dimensional family. They just told her to be a good person, which kind of goes against the whole Superman thing, where like he found out that he was sent from Krypton to like conquer us, and that was kind of interesting. Like they just retconned that by saying like, oh, Kryptonians are actually no BT dubs. Like they want her to be a good person to protect the less fortunate. It might have just been Kal-El parents. You don't know. Don't think about it. And so, like the messaging in this movie is very confusing because randomly the bad guys are having like a sex slave thing. Like they're doing like a Mad Max where they're just having wives like in captivity for purely for breeding like a male only species. And so like again, whatever. Uh okay, that was just kind of like out of the fucking blue. And it felt very Mad Maxy at the end. because literally they're on this planet and these motorcycles are driving around the characters and like they're literally like in these vehicles and there's dust blowing up and it's almost like a desert but it's not quite, and then the women get out and then they start taking over the ships and then they start shooting to the point to where I'm like, you literally you just did a Mad Max, like you like that's Mad Max Fury Road. Like I think you owe them money at this point. Like I don't understand why you did that. uh, and it was just a lot of what you think it's going to be is what the movie actually is. The best characters are objectively Supergirl and Lobo. Supergirl, the actress that plays her, I don't remember her name, but she does a really good job. She's very blunt. She's very casual. She's very good at portraying the age that she's supposed to be portraying and the mentality that she's supposed to be portraying. But everything they do with her character is just really fucking stupid because again, they make it to where her family wants her to be good and to protect the less fortunate. And so they randomly throw this thing in where like the younger girl that she's helping, she keeps telling her not to take vengeance on the bad guy. A bad guy who murders people and you find out in the middle of the movie kidnaps women and like breeds them. And then she's like, "Don't take vengeance; it's going to ruin your soul." I would know, but her entire backstory is just her growing on up on like a partial fragment of Krypton, and then leaving because people were dying. Like she doesn't have anything in her story that even suggests she even understands what vengeance is. All she can say is like, "Yeah, I've had bad shit happen, and I have a sad story," but it doesn't really compare. Like the other girl, like dead ass watches her parents die in front of her, murdered very brutally to the point to where, the first person that dies is her brother, who doesn't even realize is a bad guy in the movie. He just sees her, jumps out, and tries to scare her like a brother does, and then he just dies. Like I think they throw like an axe or something at him. And again, the bad guy who's just I call him every white inmate I've ever seen in my entire life because he fucking like if you've ever been into a jail and you've seen a white gang member, like he looks like every Aryan Brotherhood before they get old and have a beard, or every Ghostface person. Like it's just like that fucking look. And he like is always eating something. Like somebody has food and he always takes their food. Every fucking scene he's in, he's somebody's eating something, he takes their food unless if he's actively fighting, and it's to the point to where it happens like 5 times, and you're like, okay, this is just a guy that you keep trying to establish as an asshole, and then you keep saying that he's an asshole, and then at the end of the fucking movie when they're at this planet, is it a red sun that she like gets encounters that like just makes her into a normal human? Because they could have easily just like if they wanted to build drama, they could have easily just made it to where it was a red sun and a yellow sun that was like orbiting the planet, or even like a red sun and a blue sun that was orbiting the planet, and she like gets depowered without realizing it. But instead, they made up a fucking green sun, and then because it's green and kryptonite's green, it has the same effects as kryptonite, but like exacerbated. And then they try to make you think that she's gonna die when you know that the other sun's gonna come out and save her. So again, like it's building a very false, it's very building very false suspense. And at the end of the movie, like the little girl that has the opportunity for revenge for the main bad guy, she has the opportunity to kill him. Supergirl talks her out of it and says it's going to like you like they basically just do the thing where it's like, oh, like once you do it, you can't come back. And then Supergirl just brutally murders the motherfucker. And like I had really high hopes for this movie too because the beginning of the movie is her celebrating her birthday with Crypto in space, where she's going to red sun planets, getting plastered, waking up, going to a yellow star to like detox, and then doing it all over again. She's being your average alcoholic college age girl, and I'm all for it. It was genuinely one of the most relatable things I think I've ever seen in a superhero movie, where it wasn't so disgusting that you couldn't really buy into it. Some of her acting was a little bit weird when she was drunk, but that was really the only nitpicky thing I can say about her acting. But other than that, like that was genuinely interesting to the point to where you kind of begin to appreciate the character, and then she just gets thrown into this very mediocre story where you don't really give a shit what kind of happens because you know it's going to be fine. And I think this speaks to the problem that I'm having with movies where I just feel like people don't know how to write an interesting story anymore. I think that we're just trying to incorporate as many things as we can into movies, and we're trying to make sure that I guess when a movie goes out into theaters, it can be safe. I don't know. I haven't really done the whole movie critic thing that much publicly. I do criticize movies all the time, and I've watched a lot of movies. Especially because Supergirl in the comics has one of the most interesting. She has one of my favorite stories in all of comic books where she gets like a Red Lantern ring because she's like genuinely built up with so much pent up rage of seeing the destruction of her planet and kind of not really being taken seriously and not really feeling like she had a home. They kind of touch on this stuff, but they just make her into an alcoholic, which is fine because they still made her a very relatable character. But they don't everything that they do, they don't do 100%, and then a lot of the people around her feels a little bit stilted. And again, you have a movie where Crypto is Supergirl's dog, and Crypto does more in the original Superman movie than he does in like the Supergirl movie because the Supergirl movie he's just a plot device that gets her actually interested in the plot. Instead of, just being the cute dog, they could have very easily done the Groot thing where he was just this adorable little idiot walking around and being a convenient plot tool where a lot of the time he's useless, but sometimes he's not useless, like they did in the Superman movie. But no, I had to do the whole, oh, are they going to kill off the cutest character in the whole movie or aren't they? And I think there's another thing too that I want to talk about where it's like female lead characters nowadays. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is a feminism thing or if it's an anti-feminist. I don't understand if that ties into it. But I had the same experience when I was watching the preview for the Laufey game and the God of War Laufey game. Why is it that whenever there's a very strong female character that has superpowers, and like I haven't watched Jessica Jones in a long time, but I believe they do this a lot with Jessica Jones too, where like just because they're durable, you have to watch them get the shit kicked out of them a lot more than a lot of the other characters. Like Lobo almost never struggles in any of his fights, and Supergirl is objectively stronger than him, and they keep either making it to where she's in a red under the effects of a red sun or like she's like still kind of like detoxing off of some alcohol, or she hasn't been in the yellow sun for that long, or there's some convenient plot tool where she doesn't have 100% of her powers, or she does have her powers but she's still like poisoned or whatever, or confused, or just gets taken off guard. She gets like her shit rocked like a lot in this movie to the point to where I'm like, all right, like in the God of War game, I think it makes a little bit more sense to watch Laufey like get like thrown around and get punched pretty hard and get attacked pretty rough. But like for the Supergirl movie, they clearly established that it's supposed to be a very lighthearted movie, and then it's like, by the way, like they're just trying, they're like they have Alien Epstein. By the way, it's Alien Epstein, and I'm like, oh fuck, okay, we're doing this. Like they have a cage full of women in white dresses, like Mad Max Fury Road, uh, and that's like to only to all male race, and it's just it's very not how people talk, and like again, the people that do talk are all basically humans in space, so like again, you feel like she's still talking to people and like they just do the thing where they have like a random foreign accent sometimes. Like her entire character arc is it basically ends with her feeling like she can call Earth home for no apparent reason. It's just she can kind of like calm down a little bit and she tells Superman that she's willing to stay a little bit, and she feels like she's starting to feel like that's her home. Which again, she's trying to find her home, but they didn't really give you a reason for her to think that that's her home. Which it doesn't matter because they don't. Again, they only really make it to where the only emotional stake she has is for Crypto. But again, and like there's one moment where you see like a huge emotional like release of her like crying over Crypto because she doesn't know if she's gonna be able to save him. Which of course it's a movie, she's gonna save him. But like it's very jarring to know that she has 72 hours to like save her dog, and like she's sometimes in a rush and sometimes not in a rush, and she's sometimes being funny but sometimes being serious, and it's just a little bit very jarring. And again, she almost loses like a lot of the fights she's in, and she's just very roughly like throwing people around and barely like some they make it to where she has no reason to almost lose a lot of these fights, but she still gets thrown around like a lot. And of course, like the bad guy has these kryptonite arrows that he said he invented because it's hard to tell if he's an idiot or a genius. But regardless, he made kryptonite arrows. He didn't make them after meeting Kara. He made them years beforehand and was like, "Yeah, I've never been able to test them on a person, but like looking on the effects with you, they seem to be working perfectly fine." Which, what the fuck is that? He didn't need to have kryptonite arrows. They just found use that as an excuse to prolong the fight for no apparent reason. And again, if the whole point is for her to try to be good or she's trying to make her parents proud, they could have just done the Superman thing, which is why he values good things. Which they could have just made it to where like he was just taking the other girl hostage. Hey, don't do this. Hey, do that. That's a good reason for a super powerful character to lose. Is like, hey, being stronger isn't going to help this situation necessarily. That's like good character development, or like when you have to make better character decisions. But even then, it's just shit happening. It's shit happening in the movie, and that's what most movies feel like to be. It's, especially the superhero movies. That's what, especially Marvel movies. Shit happening in the movie. And like the bad guy, like one minute he's a super strong guy, where they even say, they literally say the words, he has the strength of like 1,000 men. And like, there's one moment where I couldn't even keep track if Kara had her powers back or not, but she like goes to headbutt him, and her forehead's bleeding. And like again, it's kind of cool that she has a little bit of fun with like being depowered and like occasionally getting her ass kicked, but at the same time, it's like it happens so fucking much. Like there's like seven fights, and every single time, like there's some sort of convenient plot excuse for her to get her ass handed to her, and then she just okay at the end, like I'm gonna absorb more sunlight, and now I'm invulnerable again. That's when they're done, like letting her get beat up. I know that my criticism's all over the place, and I'm not saying that like it's this horrible movie that like you should never watch or enjoy, but I really do. I really was hopeful from the last Superman movie that came out that I really just thought that they were going to start making better movies, and I'm really worried that they just are trying to marvel it up again, make a bunch of movies, find excuses to tie them all in, and don't actually make sure the substance of the movie is interesting. Don't make the characters interesting. I don't know. There's so many possible things that you can do with these characters, and if you really like, you either have to demonstrate that you have something to explore with these characters, or find an actor that wants to explore these characters, or just don't do it. I don't know what the I don't understand why we have to make these nothing stories, nothing happening in the movie or shit happening in the movie. There should be some emotional stake in what's happening beyond just having to introduce a character for the and having to introduce things for the convenience of the plot. That's my opinion. I'm thinking about watching Obsession. I haven't watched Obsession. Everybody's been talking about Obsession. There's a fly. Um, I don't know if I would want to give my opinion for that just because everybody else is doing it, and I feel like I don't want to feel forced to give an opinion. I want to have an actual opinion for things. But just let me know what you think.